All right. The short answer is they don't work unless you know how to use them. When I was 13 years old, I was allowed to get a gym membership for the first time at LA Fitness, and it was a big deal to me. So I remember the day where I came in with one of the brothers, and it was a chest day, and I was shown how to work out chest, and we did 3 sets of 10 on bench, 3 sets of 10 on incline bench, 3 sets of 10 on decline bench. Then they told me, go find all the machines with the chest highlighted on them, and go down that whole row, and that's your chest day. And then I remember on that first day as well, I looked up at one of the TVs, and it had a little, helpful commercial gym information. It said, try to train big muscle groups before small muscle groups. And I was like, got it. I know what I'm training, know how many reps to do, and I'm going to work big to small on whatever day it is. And that got me pretty far. But as many of you know, especially as a young man, you want to know how much you can bench. You want to know how much you can squat and deadlift and any of those things, because it's an ego thing and it's a status thing. And so the one way to find out, which we all did, was go just sporadically max out. Show up every other day and try to hit a new 1 rep max. The other thing you might find is how to calculate my 1 rep max. You search that on your phone, and you're going to get a rep max calculator. And I did that very early on, and it told me, well, if you're benching 135 for this many reps, then your max is actually 185. I thought, that's pretty cool. That's a big plate and a 25. So I do what everybody else did. I came in the next day and I tried 185, and I got stapled by it. And it actually took me 2 years to get 185 past that point. And so I learned pretty early on that these rep max calculators aren't really good for anything. And I just stopped using them probably for the next 10 years of training or so. They're back in my training now, and I want to talk about why. So, one, when we're talking about a rep max calculator, we're referencing a chart like this most of the time. And these are available on all sorts of apps and websites. You tell them, I did a new 8 rep max, and it's going to assume that's something like 80%, and so on and so forth. The biggest takeaway that I've gotten over the years is that these calculators won't tell you what your max is today. They can tell you what your max could be in about 8 weeks if you train for it. Because when we're doing regular training, we're just raising the water level. We're raising our absolute strength. We're getting stronger, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting better at our 1 rep max. That's a specific skill. And so if you go out and hire a coach and say, I've got a competition in 12 weeks, I want you to get me ready for it, what they're going to have you do is not really strength training. What that 8 weeks or 12 weeks is going to be is peaking. Peaking is just a way of saying practice and focus. We're going to practice on what we want to do, and we're going to focus in by stopping a lot of other stuff. Your whole work capacity comes down, but you get really good at displaying specific skills. And that's the aim of competition prep. I kind of got trapped in a cycle where I was going prep to prep to prep to prep, getting ready for competitions, and I was only raising my absolute strength level very, very slightly. What you need to raise your absolute strength level significantly is long periods of training where you don't get distracted, where you're pushing a different threshold. By threshold, I mean you can push your 12 rep max, your 10 rep max, your 8 rep max, your 5 rep max on all of your lifts, and stay focused on pushing one threshold for an extended period of time. By pushing any threshold, you can raise your absolute strength, but how do we measure it? This is where the rep max calculators come back in. I went back and retroactively applied this to the first run of the Cottonwood method that I did August 2024 to January 2025. And I noticed that my estimated 1 rep max, my E1RM, was raised by 50% from day 1 to day 153. Doesn't really matter for much because I didn't go and get it in competition. Except that when I started doing competitions again, my actual 1 rep max came up by about 40% on the lifts that I tested. That's a big deal. And the takeaway is something you might already know. Your 100% number for your E1RM, that's something you got to peak for, and it's got to be the right day. But you can probably hit 85 or 90% any day that you want it. You can certainly hit 75% any day that you want it. And so by pushing these higher and higher thresholds, raised the level, made sure that E1RM was always growing, and that's how I measure whether or not my current phase of training is working or if it's time to change. So, for example, on one press day a week, I am doing strength work on my bench press. 3 sets of 5, 85%. That's the baseball and apple pie of strength training. On my other bench press day, I'm doing an AMRAP at about 80%. And I use that AMRAP to measure a new E1RM based on a rep max calculator. As long as that E1RM continues to go up, I don't change anything in the training. I'm still getting stronger. I haven't realized the strength, but I also don't need to. I'm at a point in age where I don't need to know how much I can bench today. I'm content to find out how much I can bench at a competition. Um, but because I'm measuring and building every single week, there's also another mechanism I have. If you do a tester set on one of your main lifts and it forecasts a lower E1RM than it did last week, it's time to deload. And this allows you to have variable length training blocks because you don't always need to deload every 4 weeks. You don't always need to deload every 8 weeks. The stresses from outside the gym definitely have an effect, and sometimes you need to be a little bit more variable in those things. So that's how I'm using them. The takeaway I would say is if you're new in the gym, do not use a rep max calculator to determine how much you can do today because it's going to fail you. If you want an idea though of maybe what your second attempt should be on a 3 attempt max, that's a good thing to aim for if you've got 8 to 12 weeks to prep for it. And that's how I got 650 in competition. That's how I brought my overhead from 210 to 280 in just about a year. It's working. So having a way to measure absolute strength without the need to test your 1 rep max all the time is going to be crucial because you need those extended focus periods to really get the work done.